Here we are. That's it. We're live. How's it going, everybody? Hope you can hear me okay. Let me know if you can. Welcome to our little live stream talking about whiskey, our whiskey club, our first whiskey bottling. I've got Donal hanging in the wings there. Bring Donal in now. 1 second. Let me know if you can hear me. We're going out on Facebook, on Stories and Sips, and on Stories and Sips on YouTube. So let me know what's going on with you. Caroline Brannigan in the house, Jeff, Timmy, Ulton McGlone, good to see you all. So we're going to dive into Two Stacks, all things Two Stacks whiskey and all things Stories and Sips Whiskey Club, first whiskey expression. Let me know in the comments there if I'm coming through to you loud and clear. Yep, seems like I am. Great stuff. All right, let's go. Let's bring Donal in straight away. Sure, there's no point in hanging around. We've got a bit of chat, a bit of crack to be having. Donal McLean, how are you, sir?
Barry, good. What's the crack?
What's the crack with you? Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I'm currently just moving flats, and I just moved in, so it's a bit of organized chaos here at the minute. So I've only just come to realization after lugging up bags of bottles of whiskey that I need to actually cut down on my consumption, because I'm going up 3 flights of stairs all day. so realization that it's not good for the heart or the legs when you're carrying up half bottles empty of whiskey. So
you just keep telling yourself you're in the whiskey business, so there's no way around it.
yeah. No, all good. Good to have you. Good to have me on. Thanks so much. And
thanks for joining. I know it's late, but we've got thirsty Americans who are really interested in hearing about our whiskey, and I'm interested and determined to kind of share the journey of our whiskey as we go along. And despite logistical challenges in the world and what's going on with supply and transportation, I wanted to keep everybody up to date and then kind of move the process along and get people's feedback as we go. So good to have you on board, because you've been you were part of this particular whiskey long before I was involved in it. You guys had this cask before it was ever destined for Stories and Sips.
Yeah, it was just kind of a punt to see how it would react, and we weren't sure when we bought it what we were going to do with it. So I'm still fascinated. I got to nose it and I got to taste a bit of it. So it's not quite what I expected, but not in a bad way. And so it's certainly an interesting expression that we're going to be releasing. A California-style Madeira Cask is not something that I've come across in my time in the drinks industry just yet. So
no.
We're certainly playing with something that I'm unfamiliar with.
It's I've been nosing it there this evening and tasting it again. It's probably my third time tasting this second sample, and right. It's an extraordinarily different whiskey, and I'm really delighted that it is, because it's giving me notes I've never come across before, and combinations of notes that I've never had in the glass before. So I know we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So yeah, it is a very different whiskey. I don't think there's ever been an Irish whiskey that's been released having matured in a California-style Madeira cask, I don't think.
Not that I'm aware. And we will be interesting to see how the fans and the people who buy it, purchase it in the next few months, think of them themselves, because, it could be one that we could bring out after this. Could be such a demand, Barry. You might have struck a chord now with it, and could be a firm favorite in Two Stacks. So it could be the start of something very big. Who knows?
Well, we'll all we can do is our best, and open the bottles, open the casks, taste them, see when they're ready, and roll the dice. But before we kind of move into tasting it and talking about where I feel it's at the moment, and I kind of haven't even shared with you all kind of the final kind of thoughts that I've had having tasted a second sample. But for those who maybe are just joining us, what we're doing here now is I'm talking with Donal from Two Stacks Irish Whiskey, and our Stories and Sips Whiskey Club. Our first ever whiskey offering is a collaboration with Two Stacks, and it is the whiskey that we're working on together will come from one single cask. It is a single cask release. We have the entire cask available to us, and it is a single grain whiskey. And a single grain whiskey is something that is becoming more. We're seeing more and more of them in the world of Irish whiskey. even 2 years ago, you'd have barely seen a handful on the market. Now you're seeing more and more. It's a whiskey made predominantly from maize or corn, with a smaller percentage of malted barley, certainly less than 30%. And grain whiskey is the most predominantly produced whiskey on the island of Ireland. But it normally goes into blended whiskies. The likes of Jameson and Tullamore Dew and Paddy and Bushmills will all have grain whiskey, proper 12, lest we sully the conversation. But any blended whiskey in Ireland will have grain as a component. It's easier to produce, it's lower cost to produce, and it tends to extract maybe flavors and notes from the barrel and from its maturation very, very well. So grain whiskey is what we're going with, and it's a 12-year-old whiskey that was distilled in the Killowen Distillery in County Louth back in 2009. So just over 12 years of age. And it's had a really interesting maturation journey, hasn't it, Donald? From the moment, it spent most of its life in a bourbon barrel in the Killowen Distillery in Louth, but it has traveled and been it has been recast since. Tell us a little bit about the journey it had since it left Killowen.
Yeah, well,
it went to Great Northern, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Killowen obviously was well known for their grain whiskey. I think Glenore was quite a popular staple whiskey for a long time, and it was very underrated for a long time. And so we kind of knew when we could get our hands on something like the single grain from Killowen, we knew we'd have a quality liquid. And so, particularly at 12 years and over, something particularly an Irish whiskey having mature stock is something very rare to come across nowadays, because everyone is lapping at the heels of the likes of G&D and the Teeling family to get as much stock of the older stuff they can get. So we knew we had something with a lot of potential. I know grain probably given its kind of, I suppose, it can be quite harsh in the first few years. So given the longer it matures, the better it will be on the palate. And so we obviously biding with time and what we had to do with it. But we were fairly confident with the Time Well Spent release, which was a 12-year-old single grain that was finished in rye casks for that's the one. Yeah. We got a great response off that. And I thought it was, like, personally one of the best grain whiskies I've ever tasted. I think it was so palatable about cask strength as well. And we knew that we had great liquid access to great liquids, so it was only a matter of time finding interesting casks to recask it in and try and maybe pull out different flavors and a different profile in which you're not used to. And I think we midsummer we came across the California-style Madeira Cask. So we aged one in a Moscato sweet wine dessert cask, which is currently sitting on site, and the California-style Madeira Cask. And I think given the connection between yourselves and obviously America and what we're doing over in the States also, I think it's a nice bit of synergy in what we can bring to the table. But it was cast in, I think, August, I believe. I have to show if once you've got the label. I think it was around August or September. I might be wrong. Maybe it was August, Barry?
Yeah, I think it was August. Yeah. It was Madeira style cask.
Yeah, I think that obviously it was an ideal timing because you want to get the warmer summer months to kind of a bit of cask and then bring it into the winter. So we're obviously, August was the late August, we had it recast. So then you're coming into the autumn, winter, which is going to be a slower maturation. Now that in itself is obviously important as well for whiskey maturation too. But it took a longer time for us to kind of extract those flavors that we're hoping. I think we were all eager to get it out the door for before Christmas because, we've seen a lot of issues with shipping now to America and, the logistics behind it. But these things can't be rushed, as you know yourself, Barry. So we wanted to bring a whiskey that we enjoy drinking, that we enjoy going to be talking about, that your fans are going to enjoy drinking. And none of us would have been happy if it came up short. So I think you were up at the distillery. Was it in end of November?
End of November, yeah, November 30th at the distillery. Yeah.
It was you kept your cards close to your chest on that first tasting. I think there was a bit, I think the guys definitely knew it needed more time in the cask. But Brendan up at Killowen decided we roll the cask into the still house, give it a bit more of the warmer, actually close to the still, not far away from it, but just to kind of get more heat, allow extraction. allow more interaction with the wood. And I think that's actually paid off quite nicely now with this second taste. So yeah, that was, and so now we're still waiting for bottling. We're gonna look at times and dates and see. I think yourself, Barry, you're very happy with it at the moment. So you're still playing these cards close to your chest in regards to the.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, I haven't fully declared whether it is time for bottling yet, but rather, I think a progress report is in order for our club members, and so it's kind of why we've summoned you here today to put you on the spot while we shout our feedback, my feedback at you. And look, to all the folks who are joining, sorry you don't all have samples. It's really logistically impossible to get them to you for this. Maybe it's something we'll be able to do at some point in the future with other casks, but it's a really hard undertaking to get samples from a cask that has not yet even, there's no approval with the TTB yet. The labels haven't been submitted. We'll talk about the label in a little bit. But yeah, so I was up in Killowen Distillery. So the journey of the cask, it went from Cooley Distillery, then it spent time maturing at Great Northern Distillery, and some of that stock moved over there, and then the cask, then it was recast into Madeira, and then that moved up Madeira, California-style Madeira French oak cask, that moved up to Killowen Distillery, where, as Donald said, we tasted it on November 30th, and that was the first time I'd ever tasted it. And Fionnán O'Connor was there, and Liam from Two Stacks was there, and Brendan Carty. So very qualified palates, plus me, were all there tasting it. And I thought it was a great chance to just I didn't know what to expect. I've got some great grain whiskeys here. I've got your own 12-year-old rye cask finish, but I wasn't sure what to expect. And Fionnán had some interesting notes. He talked about things like grits and cream of wheat, potpourri. We talked about lavender. And it, at the time, I couldn't decide whether I couldn't put my head around it. I just couldn't fully wrap my head around all the notes. And so I asked Brendan for give me a couple of small bottles there. Let me take them away. I want to think about it a little bit later. And I tried it a few times since. And after that, I went back to you all and said, listen, I don't think it's there yet. I think I don't detect the Madeira, the kind of the sweetness that I would hope, or I'd love to see to come out of a cask that has had a fortified wine in it. And to your credit, like you said, Brendan rolled the cask in and out of the distillery, kind of replicating the seasons and the expansion and the contraction of the cask. And I think that gave it an extra 6 weeks to enjoy the wood. And I can say that having tasted both samples now side by side over the past, last week I tasted them again tonight, coming back to them, a notable difference between the two now. I mean, 6 weeks has really changed the whiskey. Would that be something with finishing, you'd see yourselves in previous releases that even a month or 6 weeks can change the whiskey?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and particularly given the fluctuations up on the moorings where the guys are in the summer months. I mean, they'll get colder nights and warmer days. And I mean, even the space of 2 weeks in the hotter summer months can really make a difference. It really is. And that's where you need to actually be very careful when you're maturing, or even finishing more. Maturing, if you're not too worried about it, because it's going to do its own thing when it's over a space of years. But when you're trying to finish something, if you overkill on a certain flavor, you just go into that kind of that area where you've taken too much of one flavor, and you've lost maybe certain characteristics that are hard to get back. And so it really is it's a science and an art combined, and it takes obviously incredibly experienced palates to detect when it's time to take it out. So we also lean on Brendan quite a lot just to kind of get his feedback, because it's easy for us to kind of sit around a table and kind of nod in an echo chamber and go, oh, that's good. But Brendan is Brendan. He'll tell you, lads, you might have overdone it. This might be underdone. And it's great. Actually, it's great to hear that those 6 weeks you're mentioning that you've found a noticeable difference, which I was quite nervous about the first tasting you'd done in the end of November, because I was thinking, oh well, we're going into December and January now, and they, you're not going to get much fun from a cask in the winter months. But all credit to Brendan. having to bring a cask in and out of the distillery, a bit of a pain in the backside. So it's but we'll go the extra yards for you, Barry.
We'll give him a drop. We'll give him a drop of whiskey. We might give him a bottle, will we, to thank him for his efforts. Not that he's short on whiskey up there.
But no, yeah, it's. I think also the Madeira. I think with this particular, maybe because it's from California, maybe it is in those flavors that we're so used to from Madeira side in Portugal, that it's not exactly the characteristics you're going to find from the same Madeira you find over in the Atlantic side. So, yeah, it will be. I've unfortunately I've got a sample of the old one, and then the sample I have now is Liam was had sent in post, but it still hasn't arrived to me. So I am here.
He's drinking it at home. He didn't send anything to you. He's drinking it. The California-style Madeira is something that I know there's curiosity there amongst the audience about how can a Madeira be California, and I just want to touch on that because that was something that we had to consider as well with the labeling and how we're going to talk about this. So Madeira obviously is it's not just a fortified wine; it's an island. It's a Portuguese island off the in the Atlantic, off the west coast of the Iberian Peninsula, and Madeira is they make fortified wine there. It is a protected kind of a classification. What we have is something different, because when any Irish whiskey is matured or finished, aged in any time period in a Madeira cask, what it's aged in is a seasoned cask, and it's typically a European oak cask that has been seasoned, or a kind of a cooking or a table Madeira wine, kind of a bulk Madeira wine would be used to season the cask, to soak into the stave, soak into the wood, so that's then part of the contribution ultimately to the Irish whiskey. Well, we have something different. We have a California-style Madeira. So there are fortified wines that are made outside of Europe. In this case, there's table wine, there's fortified wine, table wine that's made in California, and it is Californian Madeira. And it is, so what we have here is we have a California-style Madeira cask. In other words, you had this cask that before it ever contained this California-style Madeira, it contained a French white wine. So it's a French oak cask, 225 liters, had a French white wine in it. When that was emptied, it was sent over to the United States, to Fresno, to the Cribari vineyards. They make bulk wine. If that was Europe, they'd be using that for seasoning. In this case, Cribari, this vineyard in Fresno, they make kind of bulk table wine and cooking wine. So ideal for kind of seasoning a cask. And so what they've done is they age their Madeira in this French oak cask. Their Madeira is about 17 to about 19% ABV. So about half, at least half of what a whiskey would be, but that, fortified wines, 16, 22% maybe you'd see typically. So 17 to 19%. And then that was emptied and then found its way back across the Atlantic, where it was filled up with our aged kind of 12-year-old whiskey, eventually ended up inside it. So that's kind of what California style Madeira is. And you're going to see that on the label when we show it in a second. But I wanted to explain how we can say what's Californian Madeira and how do you navigate that?
You couldn't have said it any better. I think what's interesting too. I mean, given that it's ex Sauvignon, so I think it's ex Sauvignon from France. That's been, so it should be interesting. Just the combination of different flavor profiles that have previously been held in that cask, and being European oak as well. So there's a lot going on with this, and as you can, so if you want to show the label, we're going to try and be, obviously being two stacks, going to be as transparent as we can as possible on the label.
Yeah, so before I put the label up there, we might as well talk about the flavors that we've got so far, because I've been taking my tasting notes as well. One of the questions that came in before I do that, is there a name for the whiskey? Andrew asks, you all voted on that. You named it yourselves, which was the Crack. That was what you all voted on. Dave answered there, the Crack, because that's kind of what we have in the group and in our club is the Crack, and that was the name that was selected. So the Crack is what it's called. Now we've had the Crack so far, tasting it and sampling it. So this was let me see, I'm going to grab my different glasses here. So when I
So
was. You've
yeah,
got
I
the
have a
first
sample.
one, do you?
Yeah, I have a sample from mid-December. So I
Okay.
pulled one from mid-December. So I think you're about a month. Well, you're roughly a month ahead of me.
So this one is end of November, so about 2 weeks before you then.
Okay.
This was the first one I got. So I said the first one here, a little drop of this. So I have a small drop of the first one, which is what I'm tasting here is what I would have tasted on the day. And I took that video with Fionnán O'Connor and Liam Brogan and Brendan Carty in Killowen.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yeah. Like
on the nose,
like for me,
go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I get a kind of more of a kind of floral. I get a lot of floralness on the nose, and I was expecting more of a caramelly raisin, but it's I'm still getting what you were getting a lot in November of that floral, that hit.
That's right.
And then a bit of like a shortbready biscuitness to it. And now that's probably the grain speaking.
Yep. Very light, potpourri, flowers, petals, flower petals. And we were all surprised at that because we expected more of a kind of an agricultural rather than a kind of a flower bed note to come through.
Yeah, it's definitely delicate on the nose. Not what I expected at all.
No,
because I haven't nosed a grain whiskey like this before out of any cask from recollection. And it's very prominent, that floral nose on this, and it's quite different. You know, I have this sitting now for the last 30 minutes, so I haven't added water to it just yet. So I'm expecting maybe to open it up a little bit more. But
so this is a cask strength. So we're tasting the sample straight out of the cask, which is about 63.5%, I think, if I remember.
Yeah, it's now we're gonna I think we had at the start at 63.5, but we'll take another test on the ABV to see if it's dropped a little bit more. Just it does seem to fluctuate sometimes. So right before the bottling or the label is approved, we'll stick, but around 63 we're playing with it at the moment.
So take a little sip of this first sample. So Donald, and maybe talk about the notes of what we got back in end of November, start of December.
You know, the way that, like, I've never eaten grits, but that's what grits taste like. I'm looking for the next shop that's selling grits.
It's definitely, there's a chewiness to it. There's a kind of there's a chewy texture, isn't there?
There's a great mouthfeel to it. And it's I think the couple of weeks, the 3 weeks that after you've tasted, I think that heat is kind of dissipated a little bit more. It's not as peppery. But that kind of, again, there is a cornbready shortbreadiness to it. A lot of biscuit now I'm getting on the back. Now there's a small hint of caramel coming through. Some of the sweeter notes, but again, it's still being dominated from what I get on the nose a little bit. It's very interesting. It's
very different. The palate doesn't reflect the nose. I don't think the floral notes come through on the palate in this one. I don't think the sweetness that you're kind of expecting, or even a subtle kind of like a rose water sweetness, a light, delicate sweetness that seems to be on the nose, doesn't come through on the palate at all. You go from sweet nose to crumbly grits, little bit creamy, little bit textury.
Yeah, but the creaminess, it has a wonderful mouthfeel. I will give it that. And I would be interesting to be obviously tasting what you're tasting now, because if even those 4 extra weeks, what you've got, on your opinion, are you picking up any sweeter in regards to the profiles? What are you picking up? Anything completely different?
Yeah. So this now is here is the most recent cask draw, the sample taken from the cask. This is again about 63%. This was drawn just last week, and this is 6 weeks older. The colors are virtually identical. At maybe a tiny, it does feel a little hint darker, but could be a trick of the light, or me thinking that it should be darker because it's older. But I don't think it maybe is. I tell you, it's a different whiskey. It's a different whiskey after 6 weeks. So now on the nose with this one, the sweetness has concentrated, juicy red berries, wine gums, the black wine gums coming through on the nose. Juicy on the nose. And raspberry jam, like such a concentrated juiciness on the nose that I didn't expect from a grain whiskey.
But that's incredible that it's going from what I'm going, like it's the floralness is going into the berryness now. Obviously it's the flowers have grown into the fruit. So it's that's just
it's, and there's a lovely fudge note, a kind of a caramel fudge note coming through on the nose, on the back of that juiciness.
Well, I definitely picked up a hint of the caramel on the palate.
Yeah,
like a hint, but nothing that would you'd pick out straight away.
I'll take a little sip of this just to talk about the notes on this then. And again, cask strength.
Yeah.
You mentioned the spice kind of dissipating, and I would agree with that. It doesn't drink like a 63% whiskey. On the palate now, the first note I get is hazelnut. There's this lovely hazelnut, almost like a hazelnut spread. So like Nutella without the chocolate. It's like a not quite a peanut butter, but there's a lovely hazelnut note up front, and then a sweet red berry note comes behind it, and then I get some of those dry, more kind of textured, crumbly grits like kind of consistency to the back of the palate. But it starts out juicy, nutty, and juicy up front. It's completely evolved in 6 weeks.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're looking. That's what we were looking for with this style of cask. We wanted the nuttiness, we wanted the caramel, we wanted the fudge, we wanted those kind of notes. Like floral notes are great, but they obviously have to be contained within a certain parameter. You don't want you don't want to be drinking a whiskey and be tasting a meadow. You want to have a certain kind of. It's nice to have it on the nose. Personally, I don't really want kind of any floral notes on the palate, but it's actually a relief to hear that now they've got the nutty characters coming through, because I pick up a small bit of the nutty character, but the caramel on the palate here, but just like tiny bits, so it's a relief to hear it's actually evolved further in those 6 weeks.
It's a lovely combination of nuttiness and not an overpowering sweetness. The sweetness again remains in the nose stronger than it does in the palate. There's such a juiciness on the nose, juicy fruits, red fruits, still a little hint of lavender even on the nose. One of the odd notes I got twice when I nosed this over the past week was kind of fresh laundry, like a fresh laundry note on the nose, which I thought, well, what's that from? Is that just a floral note I'm detecting maybe?
I might have to write that down just for the old, tasting notes. Well, that's fresh laundry on a summer's day.
Fresh laundry, yeah. That's something you associate with January in Killowen,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and in your opinion, would you be happy as is, or what do you think in regards to?
So, I wanted to understand this as much as possible. I wanted to. So what I did was I laid out all the grain whiskies I have: Teeling's 13-year-old grain whiskey, an old Green Ore, 2 stacks, your rye cask finish, the original sample I got, just this week, and I wanted to understand them all to see, well, where does this rank? Is this in the kind of the profile? And I felt like it was very different to anything else that I taste on the grain side of things, even compared to your rye cask finish. I found the rye cask finish compared to this to be much spicier, spicy, kind of coffee and pepper notes. But in I would almost like there's, how would I describe it? It's there's a subtle sweetness to this one, to our cask that maybe the rye whiskey doesn't exhibit, and it's not supposed to, perhaps. But they're all very different whiskeys. And so I wondered, well, if I bought this, would I be happy with it? Would I go back and buy another bottle? And if not, then, we'd have to figure out what we'll do. And the good news is, like, I would buy this. I would absolutely buy it. If you gave me a sample of this, I let it sit there at cask strength. I have no water added to it right now. This to me is drinkable at cask strength. But I have added a couple of drops of water to the samples I tasted earlier today. What that did was, again, brought down a little bit of the spice, brought a little bit more sweetness to the fore, gave me a chance to see the different layers of, I suppose, complexity that exists there between the hazelnut up front, blending into the spice and the sugar and the sweetness, and then into that kind of crumbly, kind of biscuity texture at the end. For me, it's a great whiskey. I think it's there. I think it's ready to be bottled. It took those sweet notes that we wanted out of the cask eventually. And I love a fortified wine contribution. It wasn't there 6 weeks ago. It's there today. Bottle the thing. Bottle it.
Well, we'll be, when we should be over. I was speaking now to our designer, Johnny. He would Stereo Studios, just confirming the label. And we'll have it. The label should be around usually 5 to 7 working days. Get everything approved by the TTB. Get it bottled next week, hopefully.
Here we go. So here's our label.
There's your label. So we're not doing. Where I find a bottle of my two.
Big reveal.
So we're not going to go with the traditional labeling that we've done with this. With our single casks, we do a nice kind of vinyl print of our logo on the bottle. It'll be probably silver color, quite large at the front, and then this will be a wraparound. So what you see here, the 2 stacks, the crack, that'll be on the front, and it'll wrap around the side of the bottle. So it can be nice and simple and clean, but it gives you all the information that you want. And bottling dates, that'll be ignore the December 2021. That'll be bottles, maybe handwritten, for the extra mile we'll do for Barry, maybe handwritten on bottles January, early February, we'll see end of January.
Yep.
If you're happy with it, Barry, we're all happy. And, I think your palate is I trust your palate as much as I trust Brendan's palate in regards to whiskey. So, it's a relief. It's a relief because at the start, we were panicking a little bit. We were like, "Oh, did we just buy a dud cask, and did we just kind of put our brand kind of on the line here with doing this?" But no risk, no reward. So
pressure. Yeah. There was something I was looking for, and I couldn't put my finger on it until we got this last sample, and I was just hoping upon hope that we could get some of the rich fruit notes that we wanted, both on the nose and then even to a degree on the palate, to come out of that Madeira, to come out of that table, that kind of that fortified wine, and we got there. I think we've got there now. One of the questions is, well, why I wanted to kind of gather everyone here today is because this also us saying this whiskey is ready gives us not only kind of a let's run instruction, but also before that we kind of have a decision to make. So I remember when we released the story 2 years ago in the club. Imagine it was that long ago, 19 months ago. When we released it. We released it at 46%. I have a bottle there over my shoulder. And we, at the time, I tasted the whiskey at cask strength, and I had samples from JJ Corrie at cask strength, and they weren't right. They weren't, they didn't work for that whiskey. And it was only when we added sufficient water could we get ultimately those lovely light tropical fruit notes that we ended up with. And that was masked by the ABV at the time. And so we proceeded with 46%. Now, for this whiskey and for our club, we have an opportunity to decide what we want to do and how we bottle our whiskeys. I can tell you my recommendations or my thoughts or my kind of ideal, but I would like to hear from you as club members and whiskey fans, what you all think. There's a thing in the whiskey world, it would be very common in the world of whiskey clubs, and it's a phrase called integrity bottling. And integrity bottling is where a whiskey would be released at its natural cask strength. No color would be added. There'd be no chill filtering. It would typically be contain an age statement. And that would be irrespective of what the age is, whether it's 4 or 40. And that would mean that all information is available to the consumer, and nothing has been either taken away or nothing has been added that's not needed. So it's really it's as honest as the cask it came out of. That to me is a wonderful approach, because as we grow in the club, I think our palates are going to evolve and grow as well. And we're going to want to taste whiskies at that cask strength. So my recommendation is that we bottle all of our whiskies at cask strength, and that we as consumers get to add the water to taste. And the added benefit of that, beyond the honesty side of it and beyond just the transparency side, is that if you're buying a bottle of whiskey, wouldn't you want to buy more alcohol in it than water? And you can add your own water to it. We're going to be shipping the thing across the Atlantic. You're going to be paying for shipping costs. We're shipping a bottle that should contain more whiskey than water, put it that way. And maybe it's up to you to add the water to your taste. Some of you might say unadulterated, give it to me at cask strength. Others will bring it down to 40% or 30% yourself, but it makes the bottle go further. So I'd love to get your thoughts. Let me know what you think on the integrity bottling side, or if you think no, go with 46%. But I don't like the arbitrary numbers. I don't think whiskey should be bottled at 40% across the board. I don't think whiskey should be bottled at 43 or 46% as standard. I think it should be at the right ABV for it. And for me, it can't be any better than if it tastes right at cask strength. I think it can only get better as we add drops of water to it. So I'll shut up now and maybe Donal, get your thoughts on that too.
No, I mean, that's what we're all about really at Two Stacks. I think we leave it to the consumer to purchase a lot of our expressions of cask strength, and it's up to them really to cut it down to an ABV that they find palatable. We obviously released Dram in the Can and the first cut at 43% ABV, but that's obviously to approach a certain market audience. Mm-hmm. Your on-trades, your bars and stuff. You can't go into everything with cask strength. But our Smoke and Mirrors is at 48%, which is quite a respectable ABV. And then we've released, the Blender's Cut, and all our cask strength expressions after that have been, at 64, 63%. Yeah. And for us, it's I think the craze, I wouldn't even call it a craze. I think it's just a demand in Ireland and beyond for cask strength. We've seen the likes of Redbreast bring out, they've had the 12-year-old cask strength for years, but now you're seeing Pernod bring out a lot more expressions in the cask strength form. And Bushmills came out with the Causeway collection. They were all cask strength, and that's no coincidence. They're not doing this. They're doing this because there's a demand there to see that the flavor and the quality of the whiskey in the bottle is shown in its true form. And I think it would be it would be a shame. Obviously, you get more yield from cutting this down to an ABV that people will find that's more common on the shelf, the bottom lower shelf. Yep. But for us, you're cutting it down, but you're also cutting out a lot of the joy and a lot of the excitement and love in the whiskey that we want to share. Yeah. And I think you're true. You're absolutely spoken a lot of truths in regards to we should. I think it's great that you're offering these at cask strength, because it's what you take from the cask is the best as you're going to see. And I'm all for it. I think I would be ashamed, if this was a bit too harsh on the palate, a bit too much heat, then maybe you cut it down to a few ABV just to kind of like, you won't get that much the kind of chili, peppery heatness from it. But I don't think it needs it. I don't think I think it's, and again, if people find it, out of the 43% people find it a bit too harsh, look, you've got all the you can cut it down yourself to whatever you like, and you're still, but that's the beauty of it. So
I agree with that, and I think that it seems like the overwhelming response from the audience is that it should be from the club members here. Thanks everyone, by the way, for the input. Is that it should be cask strength and it should be integrity bottled. I've added a couple of drops of water here now to this, and what it's done for me now is it's brought forward more the caramel notes, more the fudge notes, kind of a creaminess has kind of come through more for me. But we can bring it down to 40% if we want, but I think that we should have the choice and kind of control over what happens the whiskey ourselves. And we're paying for the bottle. We might as well get more whiskey in it. It does mean there are fewer bottles available. I mean, but there are still plenty for the club. So We're not sure how full the cask is right now. We're not sure exactly what the ABV is. I think we'll check that, but the hope would be that we could get 280 plus bottles out of that cask at cask strength, I believe.
Yeah, I think we should get over. I mean, it's a 225 liter cask.
Yeah.
So, we're playing with we'd want to see a yield of over 300 bottles. That's so, we're looking between 300 bottles plus, give or take. But that we'll confirm that in the next few days for you, Barry. And the ABV also. Yeah.
Perfect. Look, I suppose there are releases out there like Redbreast 12 that can do a cask strength and a 40%. Now bear in mind, Redbreast 12 has a bit of color added to it as well. And, I would say the cask strength Redbreast would be the better one. I think our logistics and our costs are going to go up if we had both. And so I'd rather try and keep the costs as low for you all and try and give you the most authentic, transparent, honest, best tasting whiskey in its natural state. And then you can do what you want with it. You want to pour Red Bull in it, you want to put Coke in it, you want to put water in it, entirely up to you. And no one's going to complain because it's your whiskey to do what you want with it. But again, we know it's the economic reason that's driving why whiskey's at 40%. And I don't think that it accounts for all tastes. And I think that's up to you to decide what you'd like to taste it at, would be my kind of approach to it anyway. So Greg says ABV or profit margin. I'm not sure what that question means, but no, look, there's no, I mean, we're going to bring this down. We're going to keep so just a reminder for you as club members, the club doesn't make any money on the whiskey. We're passing along just the cost of this. There are many hands, sadly, in the pie or in the pockets as we bring it from Killowen Distillery to you, because there's the 3-tier system in the US has to, you have to pass through the different tiers, and everyone will be paid along the way. But saying that, we're going to bring this to you, certainly aiming for kind of the story pricing. We have to finalize that. Transportation costs at the moment are through the roof, but we'll figure that out over the next couple of weeks as we get this sorted. We don't make any money in the club. We don't get any money for the whiskey. We're just passing it along. I will buy whiskey from the club like you will buy whiskey from the club, and it's as simple as that. So we're going to try and keep this as low as we possibly can. What else was I going to say about this? So the label is going to be hand numbered in terms of the bottle numbers. So we'll put on there that we'll figure out how many the total bottle numbers are. We'll put there one of 280, one of 300, whatever it is. How it'll work is once we understand the pricing and once we understand shipping, we will open up the opportunity for you as club members to buy the whiskey. So it'll only be available to Stories and Sips Whiskey Club because that's what we're doing. This is our approach. If you're in the club, you'll have a link to be able to purchase it. How it'll work is we will offer everybody a chance to buy one bottle to begin with. If at the end of one offering, which might take, let's say, 72 hours, if after 72 hours there are still 100 bottles left, as could be the case, we'll then do a second offering and then a third offering. After the third offering, if everyone has had a chance to buy 3 bottles, then what we'll do is we'll put the whiskey, it'll be almost like on the club shelf. Let's say there's 30 bottles left over. They'll remain there, and anybody in the club can buy them at any time from our retailer. And I think that's the fairest way to do it. That way, everyone has a crack in the whip. There will be enough bottles for everybody in the club to begin with. And and then if you want to buy a second one or a third one, you'll be more than welcome to do so. They won't be for sale outside of the club. We may put 1 or 2 up for charity auctioning. That's it. But they'll only be available to club members. If you're based in Europe or the United Kingdom, we will have a number of them left with Irish malts to be able to get them to you as well. So we'll have a European stock as well as an American stock. And I think we'll have enough for everybody. We're not expecting this to sell out in 30 seconds. I'd like to see some left on the shelf so that when it comes, when we get new members joining over the next few weeks, they might want to buy a bottle as well. So we're learning as we go. We don't really know or have all the answers. And We're kind of winging half it, to be honest, but hopefully it all lands, you know. Jeff says individually numbered bottles and registered buyers, so anyone selling at auction can be identified. You know, Jeff, I understand the sentiment. It can be disappointing to see rare or special bottles, especially that you've had a hand in maybe producing, end up at auction. But we don't know what people's circumstances are, and we don't know what people's intentions are. Honestly, if you're a club member and you buy the whiskey and then you turn around and you sell it to somebody else, I suppose that's free market capitalism, isn't it? We really don't have much say over it. I'd rather not try and kind of monitor that or waste my time looking at release numbers.
Yeah,
everyone is a fair crack at the whip, you know.
Yeah, you know, we'd encourage anyone to buy them, to crack them open and drink them, and obviously share your experience online and with Barry and the group. You know, that's what it's about. Yeah, it's there's some whiskies are for collecting, but you know, certainly you know, the ones the Macallans that are going for millions, maybe perhaps, but you know, the stuff that we're drinking and enjoying are the ones, you know, we make them for enjoyment, not to sit on a shelf and collect dust.
That's it. So, and we will do a group opening together for those who want to join in, a club opening where we'll do a live stream. Maybe we do it from Two Stacks. You never know, from your new facility. Maybe
absolutely. And hopefully I'll have a fresh sample.
You might by then. Yeah, you might get your own bottle. You never know.
Yeah, that would be great. But
are you bottling up there yet, Donald?
Not yet. Well, we've got the electrics have all been done now, and we're close to having approval of our bond. So that's just going through HMRC, and our new state-of-the-art canning line is we're hoping to have that installed fairly soon. So yeah, it's all go. We're you know, once we have the racking, we've obviously getting some racking system installed, which will allow us to store up to about 60 casks. So it's progressing. Liam is at the helm. He's down there most days in charge. But I think with this bottling, we'll probably bottle it up with Killowen, just given because we don't have the licensing just yet to allow us to transport alcohol and hold us in the new facility. So yeah, we'll be all guns blazing. I'll probably fly over myself, meet the guys, do the bottling, get it out, get it done. So we're all have our hands on. And we're all kind of have it shipped out as soon as possible. So
I'll come up and do the bottling with you as soon as, like, once there's a date. Let me know. I'll be up there.
Absolutely, got some nice clean white mitts you can wear, and you know, you'll be able to shine those bottles for us.
Maybe give me like a Two Stacks turtleneck or something, and I'll do the bit of the bottling as well.
Yeah. We'll do our best.
So like what we'll do is when we do the bottling as well, we might do a little bit of a live stream of the bottling taking place, and we'll take some videos as well so that we can kind of follow along. And so you'll get to see the bottling happening as well. In terms of the bottle shape, see some questions there about the bottle shape. So this is a smaller version of the Two Stacks. I don't think I have a full Two Stacks bottle here, do I?
The bottle shape, I can show you.
You have the bottle shape itself, but the labeling will be different.
So the label will be obviously a bit different. But to be in this will be 7CL, 700 mil. We decided to go with 700 mil because you have to order specifically for 750 mils for the US market, but now with the new regulations, we can sell 700 mils in the US, so it's not a problem. And also it gives more liquid to more people. So you know, a smaller quantity for some, but more people get to enjoy it.
And then the label will be kind of down at the bottom, won't it? Like not unlike this.
Yeah, we could share. We did a similar label with another kind of club that came out very nice. We have the logo, but it's enlarged and it goes in the front.
Yeah.
So it looks really nice, very prominent, and then a nice wraparound label, very clean. But we also will always give the information, anything that's been provided. So I think we're pretty happy with the label. I think, you know, it stands out anyway, and it's something. It's a one-off. It's a vinyl that's pressed. So each label is hand vinyled and done. So each label is hand applied as well. So everything is hand bottled. It's all 100% authentic. There's no real automated bottling lines that we're used to yet. So it's all done by love.
I'm going to bring up those white gloves that Brian Redden says I have that only touch bottles worth 40,000 or more. Brian, these bottles are worth way more than 40,000 if you factor in our love and our passion, So
right.
white gloves will be donned for these.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, looking forward to actually tasting it and bottling it, and it's great to be part of it. It's a great part, I think you could be the next Scotch Whisky Society, Briar. You could be, going IPO in about 20 years' time.
Listen, as long as we keep having the crack, like we've had so far since we started, I think it's great. And like, I'll tell you, I was thinking about it today. I was driving back from Bushmills to this morning, and thinking about all of the things that are involved in the club that I never thought of, and you're dealing with them on a daily basis. I mean, you're in a logistics business that happens to sell whiskey, and I didn't realize that side, just to what extent that is the case, until I started the club, and the number of phone calls and emails that are needed for every small step, and there are hundreds of steps, is phenomenal. And so I think, I think I was very ambitious when we launched the club at just how quickly we could roll things out. And I don't think, I thought, okay, we're going to have this bottle by Christmas. We'll have our new whiskey by Christmas. And of course, the realities are that the world doesn't just bend to your naivety and ambition. So things are taking a little bit longer, but I'm hoping that the crack is being had along the way with some of our kind of live events and things as well while we wait for the whiskeys. But sure, look, good things take time, I suppose.
No, I mean, that's it. Look, you can always set goals in life, and it's always something to reach for. But I think if we had bottled this before Christmas, I think we'd all would have been a bit disappointed with the outcome or the result of the whiskey. I don't think it would have been something you liked.
Yeah.
And I'd rather keep people waiting for something that they're going to enjoy far more than have them buy something and turn around and go, it wasn't really great, that whiskey. I don't think I'll buy another 2 stacks, or I don't think I'll trust Barry with another opinion on a.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't rush these things. And we're in the middle of we're at the tail end of a pandemic. Logistics, shipping, everything has gone out the window. You can't it's nearly impossible to forecast anything. Labor shortages now, and materials, and trying to even get simple bottles shipped from suppliers in Italy, all this kind of jazz. It's just stuff you don't think of, that down the line it hampers everything else in the process. So lucky enough, we try and source everything locally, the labels and all that jazz. So we've got plenty of bottle stock. So if you want this bottled up in the next week, we can get this bottled up in the next week and find the quickest ship on the way to the United States.
And that is the next step, then, isn't it? It's kind of fitting in with a shipping schedule of when it can head over, because you've got stock that heads over at kind of intermittent times. Would there be kind of visibility into any of those potential shipping options at this stage?
Yeah. I mean, you're able to. I mean, you can ship by the pallet now on freight, ocean-going freight. Obviously, it's going to go into our supplier in California, which takes a little longer. You have to go through the Panama Canal. It adds a few extra weeks. There was a major backlog in Oakland port for a few weeks last year. I think now it's kind of cleared up. It's not as bad as it was over the Christmas period. And so, we were doing a single cask. There's talk of doing it this time last year, and it took the guts of 9 months to get it from bottle into port, and that was because of everything that's been happening. But this, I think we're fairly confident we'll be able to do it in a far shorter time. And with shipping rates and stuff, we've factored in the worst case scenario in regards to the pricing of the bottles. So we, myself and the guys really crunched the numbers, and we'll definitely get you a good price on it. We don't, we see this as a way of showing your fan base 2 stacks as well, and we think it's a huge honor as well in the sense of being the first bottling of this club. And we'll definitely get in the hands. It'll be well below the $100, not the $200 mark. I wouldn't say that. well below the $100 mark. And I think for a whiskey of that Barry yourself is very happy with, I think it'll be it'll be definitely something worth grabbing.
Well, once we figure out all the logistics costs, and like you said, it's got a long transportation journey, like going through the Panama Canal is no joke. from Ireland through the Panama Canal to California. It's quite the journey. We'll track it along the way. We'll follow the right ship. Don't worry. We'll last time we were tracking the wrong ship. Nobody told us they switched containers from one ship to the next. We're wondering why it's doing laps around Norway, and meanwhile our pallets being unloaded in New Jersey. So we'll figure out all those logistics, and we'll get this to you all as the lowest possible cost. It is like Donald said, this is a kind of a monumental whiskey because it is the first one, and in my head I can see in 20 years time that there are Stories and Sips physical locations that you can go to and enjoy whiskey, and you'll see all the whiskeys we've ever released. They'll all be up there on the shelf, and at some point in the next year or two we'll have our own shaped bottle. It might be our own colored glass, you never know, and we'll build up a big list, a big kind of a display of them. But nothing will ever take away from this one being the first ever whiskey that we'll have released. So this is the first step. We're only beginning a journey, and I just can't thank you all enough for kind of trusting in this process and this crazy idea. The club is the smallest and the least productive it's ever going to be. So if you're enjoying it now, I promise you it's only going to get better. If you're not enjoying it, I'm sorry, it's still going to get better. But we're only going to grow. So this is going to be a special one. It'll be the first one. It'll kick it all off, and sure, the sky's the limit after that.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope we're the first, but I hope we're not going to be the last time we do a bottling for the club. Anyway,
I'm sure not.
No, but no, I'm looking forward to it, and we'll get stuck in, get her done, and get onto the shelves and the hands of your loyal fan base as soon as possible.
100%. And who's asking? Yeah, Michael Caldwell. There will be some for Irish members. Irish malts will help us out on the European side, so they'll have shipping for Europe and the UK. So no fear of that. And we'll always take care of our members in Ireland and the UK and Europe. So, Donald, I think we've hit on everything. The next thing we'd figure out is when we're going to get it bottled, schedules for that, and I definitely want to be there for that. So we can talk over the next day or two about that. And I'm excited to move this along and to get this into bottles and get it over and into people's hands. And this is brilliant. Thanks for joining so late at night as well. I know midnight. Sure, look.
No, not a problem.
You should be in bed asleep.
Nah, look. This is the curse of the whiskey industry. You work at all hours, and you have to you got to just go with the flow. We will get the labels and everything done up. I think it shouldn't take too long. You're looking at a week max, and I don't think we will have no problems with the TTB approval. That's usually the first thing that's been sent off to the lads. So once that's approved, we're good to go, and we should be a week. Maybe middle of next week we could be bottling. So whatever schedule works for you, Barry. We can.
Yeah. Listen. It could happen. Let's talk tomorrow, and we'll figure out that side of it. And the label's good to go, and bottling's good to go. And thanks a million for all the help so far, and for coming up with ideas on how to move this cask along. And Brendan rolling it in and out of the distillery closer to the stills. We've some more mountain air to thank for some of the maturation.
Absolutely. Look, Brendan's busy enough, but sure, look, we always love giving him more work to do. It's keeping complaining.
Give a busy man the job.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, we can. We'll touch base. We'll keep everyone updated, and we'll have you there for the first signing. You can have the first signature on the bottle anyway, and the first number one bottle written by yourself.
Brilliant, fantastic, great stuff, Donald. Really appreciate it, and thanks for jumping in. And should we give you a shout tomorrow?
Absolutely, no worries, Barry. Have a good night.
Thanks, Donald. Good night. All the best. Great stuff. That's brilliant. Now, really am happy with it. Went back to the other sample multiple times, and just it wasn't yet there. It wasn't there. This is the tricky part, of course, is knowing when is it there and when is one day too much or 1 week too much. And when we were up at Bushmills over the last week, talking to Alex Thomas and Lauren McMullen, we were having a conversation about how one of their recent Causeway Coast releases, they timed it down to a certain week when they felt it was ready. And they put another portion of it, left another portion in the cask, came back to it a week later, and they thought it had gone too far. That's the kind of like Donald was talking about, the kind of week to 2 weeks of finishing, the difference it can make. So I think we're there. Like, it's good enough. Like, it's absolutely there. We can't risk it going further and it's spoiling and maybe becoming over sweetened from the fortified wine. It's a lovely, lovely sipping whiskey, and it doesn't sip like 63%. And what I mean by that, I mean that in the best possible way. We want it to be 63% because of our cask strength, because of its complexity and its authenticity and its honesty. But we don't want what we might typically associate with a rubbing alcohol, which is harshness and blindness. Instead, what we have here is, honestly, you'd think you were drinking a 46-48% whiskey. Even adding the few drops, it doesn't change it dramatically. It just highlights some of the different notes, the caramel, the fudge notes coming through a little bit more on the whiskey. Remarkable whiskey. I think we're good to go. We're good to go. Thanks, Anne Marie and Laurie there for the comments. Yeah, so that's all the info on it. I think that's hopefully that kind of keeps you up to speed on the journey. It's, the whiskey release is just one of the various projects we've got on the go. As you know, our club cask remains a logistical maze. And I'll tell you where we're at with the club cask. So our first club cask with O'Shaughnessy Distilling, what we're trying to figure out right now are the 3-tier system in the US and how it can work with a Minnesota-based distillery, being able to get the final bottlings when that happens in 3 or 4 years' time, where those final bottlings are legally allowed to go or travel within the US, and how they can end up at our retailer. So let's say we're working with Folsom to retail, to get these bottles to you and ship them across the country. A lot happens between Minnesota and California. And again, it's one of those things where a lot of people have their kind of their costs along the way. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we minimize and eliminate the costs so that we can keep the cost to you as low as possible. And again, we're just passing across the cost. There's no kind of profitability to the club on these things, but that's where we're at right now. And so between California and Minnesota, we're talking about those things at the moment and trying to figure out what that looks like. I hope to have an answer for you in the next week or two on the date we can officially take orders for a share of one of Brian Nation's first ever casks. So that's coming. It's in progress. Nothing's ever going to move as fast as I wanted to move. I can tell you, I'm an impatient person. And I have to learn how not to be so impatient, because I'm in a business that doesn't reward impatience. It rewards patience, like a good whiskey. The thing we will announce, though, probably before that, is our next club quarterly tasting, which is save the date, February 23rd. All going to plan, February 23rd. And that is going to be a tasting. Do I tell you or don't I tell you? With one producer. And this one producer is shipping over 3 samples, all of which will be available in the US, but one of which is a world exclusive. It will never have been tasted anywhere before. It will be a single cask, and you're going to be the first ones to taste it. That cask is making its way to the US to be available after the tasting, but you're the first ones that are ever going to taste it. So that's going to be announced in the next week or so. I think we're again dependent on that third and final piece, which is the third and final sample, which is the exclusive single cask sample, is still in Ireland, awaiting delays with printers. We wanted to get the bottles over without the labels, but we can't because they must have the labels on them, even though the labels are already approved through TTB. So now we have to hold off on shipping. They're going to be air freighted in, which is going to be come at no small cost to our producer. They'll be air freighted from Ireland to California with the labels on them. The labels arrive on Friday, and then they will ship immediately after that, so that we hopefully have them in our hands by the beginning of February, which means we can then package them up into boxes and get them out to you, so that you have them in time for February 23rd. So that is what's happening next, which is great fun. And I've already got our May tasting pretty much lined up. And I think we're going to have 6 whiskeys for that, believe it or not. I think we're going to have 6. We have 3 for our next one. I think we're going to have 6 for our May tasting. And yeah, so, and then what else are we doing? So obviously we just had a great week in Bushmills. There's going to be some videos that are going to be shared over the next week or two. This week is going to get out of, is going to disappear very quickly. But tomorrow I hope to put together the final upload of the last of the Meet the Maker 3-hour session. Should be uploaded tomorrow. There's also going to be a overview video that I'm going to share across YouTube, Facebook, everywhere, of the trip to the North Coast up to the Causeway Coast. Spectacular scenery, spectacular coastline. Did some more video shoots today along the Causeway Coast. I've got incredible footage to share. I mentioned earlier in the year, or maybe it was late last year, I did a drone video from Kinsale in County Cork, and I asked you all, would you like to see more of what's around the surrounding kind of areas around distilleries, as well as the whiskey? And you all said yes. And so what we did this time when we went up to Northern Ireland was I shot some footage of the surrounding area so that we could explain a little bit of some of the sites, and then integrate that in with some of the highlights of the trip to Bushmills. That video. So what I'll do, there'll always be kind of one big video that's available to everybody publicly, and then for members of the club, you get to go deeper into that video and get the things like the Meet the Maker event. You'll have some offshoot videos, like, for example, I spent some time with the Master Cooper at Bushmills. We'll have a little video for you on that. We got to see the bottling line at Bushmills. We got to see the filling stations where they fill the casks from the stills. You're going to see a video of that in the club. So trying to give something for everybody, but I want to shoot video footage that's never been seen before. No one has ever done it. So we're going to get more behind the scenes access to distilleries and brands. We're going to pair that with local footage, drone footage, on the ground footage, sites, interesting things to see. And it just means that I'm going to have to live in a car for the next year and drive around Ireland and just take videos and get locked into distilleries. And it's a terrible life, but I will carry this cross for all of you so that we can get some good videos and good whiskey. It's as simple as that. So what else? I know there's more we're going to talk about. I don't yet have a Meet the Maker event planned for February. That's what I've got to work on next. We cannot top Bushmills for a long time, I can tell you that. But we will be. I think you're going to be excited about some of the things that are going to start appearing. There'll be some surprise events as well over the coming months. Rick, I always need a qualified video assistant. I tell you what, you better come over here and help. You better come over here and help. What else? I'm working on packaging. I'm trying to figure out packaging. So you all got, when we launched, we had a Whiskey Club glass, a lovely Copita, which we have here. And we had our first quarterly tasting had a lovely box packaging as well with all the 3 whiskeys in it. Packaging is going to elude us for, I think, a couple of months. We're going to have, our next one will be a plain white box with a Stories and Sips Whiskey Club sticker on it, tasting note card inside. Packaging is just, it's mayhem. It's a disaster. I had a conversation with a few different packaging companies earlier this, what day is today? Oh yeah, so it was late last week, talking about potential packaging, and the timeline for getting delivery of these boxes is absolutely astronomical, but we're working on it. So again, Rome wasn't built in a day. Once we land on the thing we like and we get a supplier that we like and a design we like, we can make lots of them and we can have them on standby. So kind of working through all these bits and pieces. I never knew there was so much involved in the logistics side of a whiskey business, but sure, listen, isn't that all half the crack of it? Half the crack. What else? Members' homework: rehearse a song, a poem, or a toast to share during our session. Yeah, that's true, Nina. That's right. There were some good songs after 4.5 hours of the session. The thing that, for those of you who were on the Meet the Maker event, we glossed over this one thing that was, I think, the most important nugget of information, and it got lost amongst 4 hours of other things on the night. And that is just the small little nugget that was dropped by Alex about the second distillery at Bushmills. And I don't know, I think a few of you perked your ears up and asked, what, a second distillery? And it wasn't mentioned much more beyond that, because we moved on to, I don't know, opening some other fantastic whiskey and tasting it and talking about it and singing a song and ringing a bell and doing all kinds of things. But this is something we're going to come back to, because there is another distillery that has been built on the grounds of the Bushmills, old Bushmills distillery, and it is already functional. It's already distilling. And after we ended the the Meet the Maker, felt like a lock. It was a lock-in. After we ended the Meet the Maker at 4:30 in the morning Irish time, we spent the next 2.5 hours touring the new distillery until 7 in the morning. So I didn't get to sleep till 8 the next morning. I had to check out of my hotel at noon, and then I had to drive to Belfast. But we spent 2.5 hours touring the new distillery. And we weren't allowed cameras. We weren't allowed phones. We weren't allowed anything that would indicate or show what this distillery is, what it's doing, or what it's all about. But all I can say to you is, it's maybe the most incredible new addition in the world of Irish whiskey, and nobody knows about it. And they won't know about it for a while, because they have to work through they're working through a launch plan for it. They're working through a grand reveal. They're working through a name for it. It's going to be named something different, but it's part of Bushmills, and it's already distilling. And it is, my jaw was on the floor for 2.5 hours touring this distillery. And you're walking. It's on the site of the old Bushmills distillery. Even my drone footage, when I shot drone footage, I had to ensure that anything I am using to share with you doesn't show the new distillery in it. That's how hush hush it is. But it is mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. So we're going to go back there when that comes online publicly. Once they've worked through what they need to work through with their launch plan, and once COVID permitting, we're going to go back and do another event from the new distillery. So stay tuned for that. That's just, we have to do it because it's that amazing. And you may find that we do more things with Bushmills because they love the club. They love our group. We love them. And I think you'll all agree, they absolutely rolled out the red carpet for us and brought us to places and areas that no one had ever been before. Certainly no one had ever been there at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. Locked into a distillery is a special thing. I'd like to do more of it. Any distillery owners on here, please lock me in your distillery. I won't complain. You can swallow the key. Doesn't bother me. And if we do something at the distillery in Bushmills, COVID permitting, or in some other potential distilleries, it would be great to do some things in person, wouldn't it? So that if you were coming to Ireland or you were in Ireland, maybe we could do some in-person meetups that kind of tie in with it. So just know that while the world isn't playing with us right now, playing well with us, in the future it might, we hope, and touch wood, as restrictions ease, as the world gets a handle on these things, we could be announcing a Meet the Maker event 6 months into the future to give you enough time to go there, to book your trip, arrange your travel around it, and we do an event where a certain number of people can join in as well. So look, we're only getting started. I just want to have the crack. I want to drink great whiskey and meet nice people. And that is what is already happening. And it has happened since the day we started this group and this club. And now having a club, having a formal structure allows us to do a little bit more. It puts some formality to it. It allows us to go to distilleries and talk about a club, a functioning club that has events, that have whiskey releases, that have tasting opportunities. And it's giving us more opportunity to do good things. So thank you all for being part of this, because it is, without the structure and the formality of the club, we couldn't organize around it, and we just wouldn't have the resources to do it. The distilleries, and something that's probably worth sharing is that the club is completely advertising free. No distillery or brand can pay to influence it, can pay to have their whiskeys in a tasting pack, or for us to go to a Meet the Maker event at their distillery. No distillery pays a cent, a penny to participate. In other words, we've kept it advertising free. That means that you control the shots. You're the club members, and you're the only ones who pay. And the reason I want to do that and not take membership or kind of sponsorship from distilleries is that we want to be in charge of the story and and we want to taste whiskies objectively and independently. So we were able to go to Bushmills over the past week because of as a club, we had access now to some resources to be able to go and do that, to make sure we were able to get cameras in the air, to be able to get recording equipment, to be able to get certain things in place. That's all there because of you supporting the club. So I got that question during the week, did Bushmills pay to do this event? No, Bushmills didn't pay. There was no money changed hands for an event like that. We got to know Alex and Lauren through the lock-in last year, and we've been talking ever since, and they love our club and our group, and we love them. And so that's how it's going. It's about when we meet the right people who are making the right whiskey, we'll do things with them. No one can leapfrog over that. There are some people who've asked to do things with the club that we just kind of won't do anything with because they don't get it. They think they're looking for some kind of sponsorship deal. That's not how it works. So we as a club have to be careful what we do and with whom. And I think this gives us some independence. So hopefully that kind of clears that up anyway. I just wanted to add that in there anyway. Let me see. Live club launch on the site, says Brian, or on site. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If COVID allows, could local members? Absolutely, Michael. Michael, if you're a part of the club, you're a part of the club. 100%. As simple as that. And when we do these events, it's right now it's all virtual, isn't it? But the Meet the Makers, look, the makers want to meet you too. How many times on our Meet the Maker event on Friday night did Lauren and Alex say, geez, look, I see Dave's name there all the time. I can't wait to have a drink with Dave. And there's Stacey. Look, I see Stacey all the time in the group. We have to have a drink with Stacey. They're all dying to meet you as well. So that's it. We're building a very different model here. This model doesn't exist in the world of Irish whiskey today. And I think we have to stick with it, which is we build relationships. We don't take sponsorship. We build membership and relationships, and that's going to give us independence, objectivity, and the chance to say no to the things that don't work for us all, and the chance to pursue the things we really want to pursue. I think that's a good model, and I think in time it really, really works for us. There's Lauren. She's here. Lauren, how are you? She's tuning in. She can't get enough of us. As simple as that. No, Mark, there'll be no links to whiskey and wealth. You can't. Surely those phrases should have been blocked or flagged now. They shouldn't have made it past our spam filter. Lauren wondering how I'm still alive. 6.5 hour drive from Bushmills this morning. Pouring rain for 5.5 hours of that. But a few podcasts and a bit of news, listening to it on the way down, a bit of music, made the journey, and then thinking about tonight. And then came back here, lit the fire. The house was freezing, lit the fire. And then as soon as the fire was lit, came up to the office, sat down here, pulled out the whiskeys again, started tasting, doing another tasting of this, of the 2-stack single grain, get my notes again, make sure we were good to go. And sure, we got to keep it going, Lauren. We got to keep it going. Lauren, incidentally, is the head of fisheries at Bushmills. If you're looking for someone to catch whiskey for you, she's your woman. And go to Stories and Sips Facebook page or our Irish Whiskey Fans of America Facebook group. You'll find a video of Lauren fishing for whiskey off the Giant's Causeway. She did a good job too. She left behind some like 21-year-olds and some 32-year-olds hanging on string in really precarious rocks. So like next time you all go to the Giant's Causeway, put yourselves in mortal danger to find the 21-year-old and the 32-year-old whiskeys that she's hidden there. I think that's really sound and good advice that you should definitely take me up on. Brian says drinking with Dave is overrated. Brian, you're on soft ground there now because we've all had drinks with you as well. Oh yes, and then on the way down from actually, so I went from Bushmills to Belfast to Bushmills, and then Bushmills to Redemin Estate Distillery, and then or kind of something like that. Bushmills, Belfast, Bushmills, and then back to Cork. But along the way, went to Redemin Estate. Didn't share much about our Belfast night out in Belfast because we were absolutely wrecked, weren't we, Lauren? We couldn't keep going after that session. We'd been going till 7 o'clock in the morning, and then to go out again for dinner and drinks that night. But we were kind of troopers. We had a pint at Bittle's Bar, and then we had a drink at the restaurant, and that was it. There was no going on. That was it. But anyway, stopped off at Redemin Estate Distillery. Didn't shoot a lot of video footage there this time, but instead explored it, understood it, kind of tried to wrap my head around it. Very kind of complex, engineering driven, but it all works in a weird and wonderful kind of mad scientist way on this beautiful estate on the Ballinhinch River, about a half hour south of Belfast. We're going to go back to Redemon Estate to meet David Boyd Armstrong and Fiona, his wife, and we'll do a proper club video in there, kind of walking through the grounds, getting the story of it, maybe doing a little tasting on site, and we'll record all that in video. David's a former missile engineer, and he knows how to build kit and engineers things together, and he's building him and his wife are building something special there. So Redemon Estate, we'll be back there. And when we do go back to Redemon Estate, we'll be going to Hinch Distillery, because Jamie at Hinch was very upset that we went up to Northern Ireland, where I was within 10 minutes of Hinch Distillery and just couldn't squeeze any more physically in. And Jamie wants to spend a full day with me on site, opening casks and kind of going behind the scenes at Hinch Distillery. So expect some of that as well. So loads ahead, loads and loads and loads. Lauren says she's still dead. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. It was an absolute amazing night. I mean, I have 46 gigabytes of videos that I shot in the Causeway Coast that I have to trawl through, and I'll put together the first of the videos tomorrow. I hope to get it on the site tomorrow, and then probably next week I'll release the Stories and Sips hits the Causeway Coast. It's probably going to be a 20 to 30 minute video that I'll release, which will hopefully be an indicator of the style of video we're going to create going forward, that has something for public consumption and something that points to what members can get additionally by going into the club. And I'm just so thrilled with how some of the footage turned out. Lauren wants to get a drone herself now after what we did at Bushmills. She wouldn't fly my one though. She was afraid to crash it, and she hadn't the company credit card to reimburse me on her. Yeah. So look, if any of your trips to Ireland as club members coincide with any of the things we're doing, I'd love to meet you at some of these locations, and I'm sure some of our brand friends and producers would love to do the same. So just keep us posted and let us know. Our calendars won't always align. There's maybe things we can't do, but certainly if we can facilitate getting club members some access when they're in Ireland, whether that's with us directly or on your own, absolutely love to help. Love to help. Brian says Giants Causeway just became the most popular tourist attraction. We went back there today, Lauren, and walked the entire up the Shepherd's Steps, the Shepherd's Stairs, and up by the organ that you showed me when we were there the first day. So did the complete lap this morning. Really worked the legs before a 6.5 hour drive. You know, that's the time to be doing a big hike up a hill. So I was back there today, took some more footage, and down at Ballinatoy Harbour and all over. You'd be proud of me, Lauren. You'd be proud. Lauren says, if anyone comes to Ireland, please drop me a message. Pint and whiskey waiting for you. Anne-Marie says, when are you coming home? Anne-Marie, where's home? I split my time between Ireland and the US. We're going to be spending a lot of time in Ireland this year as we build out the club and build relationships and get things up and running. Obviously, my wife's from the US. We'll go back and forth. But you know, we're building a virtual club at the moment, and the in-person element will be. I think there'll be an in-person element in Ireland as soon as possible. So we'll be spending a lot of time here. And that doesn't mean there won't be club events taking place and group events taking place in the United States. There's things already in progress, and we'll be planning those. So those are coming up as well. The North Coast has me now. Honestly, the North Coast, it'll be seeing a lot more of me. It's the most stunningly beautiful scenery I've seen in a long time. I think it might even beat out Dingle. Throwing that out there. It might beat out Dingle for it's just, I mean, the diversity of scenery is just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. The rope bridge is not open, Ulton. No, rope bridge is still closed. We were right beside it. I was trying to get the drone to fly over it, but couldn't. The wind was too strong. I couldn't get over there. The Lauren, I got stuck for parking charges today. There was no way to avoid it. I went to the same parking spot you brought us, but this time a man jumped out from a hedge with a card reader demanding £5 to park the car there. I was stuck. I couldn't avoid it, so I had to give them the money. No free parking today. John says, does it beat out Cork? John, you can't put me in that kind of spot. You can't put me in that kind of position now to ask me if it beats out Cork. And I'm sitting in Cork at the moment. West Cork, and how about this? West Cork and the Causeway Coast and the Glens of Antrim, the Antrim Coast, they're probably on a par. That's big praise now coming from a Cork man. Big praise. Bill says, sorry I'm late. What did I miss? Nothing, Bill. Just about an hour and a half. Nothing else. Jeff wants a club passport and a secret handshake. It'd be good, wouldn't it? I was trying to figure out how to get club members' names available to distilleries so that, as we're working on kind of deals or kind of offers or discounts that you might be able to get, how will they know that you're a current member? It's a logistical nightmare, but we're going to try and work on something. Jason gives West Cork the edge. Yeah, look, they both have some beautiful parts. I think to me, there's the novelty at the moment of the Causeway Coast because it's my first time ever there. I was never there my whole life, and what a way to kick it off. So there's this lovely novelty factor. Now there's still some parts of West Cork I've not seen either, but after this week, we can't wait to go back and absolutely love Belfast and only scratch the surface of Belfast. So I have to go back there, stay at the Titanic Hotel, big Titanic buffs, Titanic exhibition. Amazing. Belfast is a fantastic city. And I've not seen the level of construction and development happening in Ireland as I've seen in Belfast at the moment. It's unbelievable. Down by Queen's Island and down by the Titanic Quarter. It's unbelievable the amount of development that's happening. Really, really progressive and confidence. There's great confidence in the city, which is a lovely thing to see. Lauren, I didn't say it was the best place in Ireland, but that it was up there with West Cork. Caitlin says maybe membership cards with year stickers. It's a good idea, but the challenge is that you could come in for a month and we could send you out the packs with membership cards, and then you could leave after a month, and then it's not really a year sticker, is it? We'd have to have an annual kind of a membership for that to be able to get to kind of show the distilleries. So we'll have to think about that. I'm sure there's something we could do. The pin. Yeah, maybe a pin. I gave Laura a pin. She got her Stories and Sips pin. If anybody sees me in person, you can ask me for a pin. I have more of them. They're around here somewhere. I might give some more away shortly. I'll have to mail them from here though. Annual membership works, as Caitlin. Yeah, we'll that's something we'll look at. I did think by this stage I might have kind of more kind of done on that membership side in terms of what packs we might have available to new members, but we're still kind of stuck in the logistics of the bottling and the casks and the meet the makers. But that's okay. We'll get there. I don't want to grow too fast anyway. We've got a great foundational base of the most loyal and the most eager, avid whiskey fans. So I think we got to get it right for you all first. Hey, Aaron Ryan, sure you'd find plenty of stones and rocks in Cork. You would. But they don't have a wee accent. They have a different accent, like. Jeff wants us to log in front of somebody. Like a COVID pass. Unique QR code tattooed on our arms. Lisa, you'll get a free lifetime membership if you put a QR code that redirects to storiesandsip.com. We'll give you a free lifetime membership. But it must have the little Stories and Sips logo, the little glasses in the middle of it. So if you get that done, take a picture, send it to me, and your membership charges will be eliminated. Oh, good man, Jeff. I gave Jeff a handful of pins. He's giving them out. Great stuff. Bill's got plenty of whiskey to keep busy. There's a wee accent. Lauren says she's never realized how many times she says we. So when you check in, when you go for dinner in the Bushmills Inn, the top of the menu, it says "wee starters." Everything is wee. Everything is wee. Would you like a wee drink? Would you like a wee dessert? Would you like a wee starter? Everything is wee. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's the best thing. It's the most friendly, familiar, loving, kind, safe thing you can say to somebody. A wee thing. You know, would you like a wee pint? Imagine a wee pint as opposed to a large pint. I mean, a pint's a pint, you know, but a wee pint sounds so much better, doesn't it? A wee pint. Yeah, I mean, today now, I was thinking, you know, in the US, you all don't think much of driving 6 hours. I mean, you'd often drive 12 hours for a good dinner, you know. But like when I was living in Ohio, the amount of people who would drive to the Outer Banks, or the amount of people who drive to Florida, was just mind blowing. And as growing up in Ireland, sure, we never drove anywhere more than 3 hours or 4 hours. No, we never drove for 4 hours. The furthest we ever drove as children was Cork to Ballybunion, Cove to Ballybunion. That was the furthest we ever drove. I'd never been in a car for more than 2.5 hours, I'd say 3 hours max. And so you don't think anything of these 5-6 hour journeys. But today, like, I drove the furthest I've ever driven in my life in Ireland, which is from coast to coast, north to south. I saw the Antrim coast at 9 o'clock this morning, and I saw the Cork coast at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's a rare thing to do in Ireland. That kind of journey is very, very rare. But it did remind me, having lived in America now that I have been in America for so long, that those long journeys don't mean as much to me anymore. Even as an Irish person, I've forgotten how little we drive those distances in Ireland. So now it reminds me how much of Ireland is actually available to me within just 5 hours. I could have breakfast in Cork at 7 o'clock, and I could have lunch up at Bushmills at 1 o'clock. And so that's a lovely thing to know that the island of Ireland is that size. It's all within reach. Chris is hopefully coming over in March. Great stuff. A wee pint is what the Hobbits drinks, is Caroline. Tammy says, I've always thought it meant tiny. Yeah, it does mean small, wee, small. But you can't have a small pint. You know, it's like saying the door is half open. Well, it's not. It's either open or it's closed, you know. So wee is just a lovely colloquialism, kind of unique to, I suppose they say it in Donegal, and they say it in Northern Ireland. It's lovely. I'm going to use it all the time. I had to ask permission of Lauren. I said, is it okay if I continue our dinner in a Northern accent? She said, I'd be very proud. And so I did my best. Aaron's got some good input there on Northern Ireland and Belfast. Up there with the best food on the land. Yeah, it is amazing. Giant's Causeway is spectacular, and the full walk around is just absolutely beautiful. You never see that full kind of cauldron is really what it's like almost. In photographs, there's always photographs of Giant's Causeway, that one pyramid of stone, but you don't see the rest of it, and it's absolutely spectacular. There are a couple of stories and Sips tattoos out there, believe it or not. There are two that I know of. Yeah. And I've told them to share them if they're open to it online. So if they do, they do. But there are stories and Sips tattoos out there. The two glasses, our logo, our glass logo, have been tattooed, believe it or not. So, Shine, that's it. What are we working on next over the next few days? Oh yeah, so yeah, tomorrow you'll start to see some videos dropping from Bushmills, and I'll send those out to you. And yeah, give me some feedback along the way. Let me know what you're liking, not liking, and we'll do our best to just explore as much as we can of the world of Irish whiskey, and then wrap Irish kind of sites and geography and culture and things into it, and we'll just grow and grow and grow. And as the membership grows, we'll be able to do more as well. So I'm gonna take a wee drink and then go for a wee sleep, because it's 1:35 in the morning. And oh yes, this week, I'll tell you what I'm doing this week. Here's something that might be interesting to you, and I will get all the details of it. I booked a day in the Middleton Academy on Thursday. So with a friend of mine, Dave O'Connell, Dave's Whiskey on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, Dave's Whiskey. Dave's a good whiskey man from Dublin. big powers collector. Me and Dave booked a day together down at Midleton, and we're going to go through the Irish Whiskey Academy, spending a day learning about how whiskey is made and kind of in depth at how whiskey is made at Midleton specifically. I've never been to the Irish Whiskey Academy. It's the only academy for Irish whiskey in the world, really. And we're going for a full day. So that's on Thursday. So I'm looking forward to that. It starts at 9 in the morning, goes through till 6 in the evening. And yeah, I should learn a lot and hopefully be able to share maybe some videos or some pictures with you about the academy. Anybody can book it. I booked it online through their website. Just Google Midleton Academy. They have 2-day courses. They have half-day courses, full-day courses, varying lengths, varying costs, depending on what you want to do and what's involved. But if you are really interested in Irish whiskey and you want to spend lots of time kind of diving into the process behind it, not the tour side of things, not the kind of storytelling, but rather the science, the nuts and bolts, the protein percentages of the grain, that's the Whiskey Academy. So it's available to anybody to book. And I think some of you have probably already been through it, but I have never been through the Irish Whiskey Academy. They never invited me. So I booked a course myself. And so we'll do that on Thursday, which should be good. Okay, so Mark would love a pin. Mark, if you're in Ireland, I think you are, shoot me a message. I'll get you a pin. Kieran Quinn arriving an hour and 36 minutes late. Jeez, good job, it isn't your wedding. There's Jeff, put the irishwhiskeyacademy.com. That's it, the link in there. Yeah, Mark, shoot me a note there. We'll get you a pin. We could have left one on the side of the road for you up in Northern Ireland. Kieran in for the last drink of the night. Oh, Jeff and Lisa just attended it virtually. They did the virtual Whiskey Academy. Very good. Were my marks high enough on my leaving cert to get into the academy? I wasn't much of a scholar now, sadly, to get into anything, Andrew. So I have to pay my way. Lauren, you're still up as well. Have you a wee song? You never sang a song the other night. Rick's off. Thanks, Rick. Thanks for joining in. Never count Kieran out. No. There was something else I was going to tell you. What was it to do with? Can't think of it. It'll come to me as soon as I end the night. Can't think of it. But yeah, so look, we've had a great. I'm delighted that our whiskey is ready. For those of you who've just joined late, Kieran Quinn, look at you. You can watch the replay tomorrow. This will be on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. But our whiskey is ready to be bottled, and if it bottles in the middle of next week, I'm going to drive up to Killowen and bottle it up there with the lads. Because looking at my schedule, I think I could do that next week. That'll be amazing. We'll video it. We'll probably do a live stream from there as well as we bottle it. But we'll have a bit of crack. And I mean, if you're in Ireland, we might need some help. Who knows? I'll talk to the lads, see what the crack is. If we do need extra help, I might wave the help needed sign for those of you who are in Ireland to come help bottle. And yeah, and I'm excited to get it to you. I'm sipping away in it here, enjoying it. A couple of drops of water changes it. But again, cask strength, 63%. I'll sip away in that nicely. I'll probably feel it when I stand up. But the trick is, don't stand up. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And I will talk to you over the next few days online again. And we will have lots to announce in the next week to 14 days. But I'm going to head to bed after my wee whiskey and get a good night's sleep. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Sláinte all. Thanks for joining. And thanks for all the support as always. And be safe and Sláinte.